Good morning, everyone. The time is now 10 o'clock, so let's begin. I would like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who have joined us either today, either in person or online. This is the meeting of the Highways and Transport Committee, and we are currently in New Shire Hall in Alconbury. The council allows filming and photography at its public meetings, so please feel free to take pictures and post to social media during the meeting. Can I ask, though, that everyone present please turn their mobile phone to silent or vibrate whilst the meeting is taking place. There are no fire alarm tests scheduled for today, so if the alarm sounds, please leave by the nearest marked fire exit and assemble in the car park. Would the Democratic Services Officer please report any apologies for absence, Nick?
Thank you, Chair. There are apologies from Councillor Dupre with Councillor Nethsinger as a sub, Councillor Fisher with Councillor Sidlow as a sub, Councillor Morgan with Councillor Clark as a sub, and Councillor Sanderson with Councillor Bradnam as a sub.
Thank you very much. Does any member wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests or non-statutory disclosable interests? Nope. Okay, thank you very much. So firstly, members, we are asked to approve the minutes of the previous committee meeting held on the 2nd of December 2025. Can I ask whether any member disagrees with the accuracy of the minutes? And obviously, please keep your comments to the accuracy. Sorry, Democratic, yeah. Dan?
Chair, thank you. Just to note that there's an error has been noted in one of the paragraphs on minute 28, which is the Highways Improvement Programme Asset and Data Strategy in the 7th paragraph. It's a minor amendment, which it currently says the Gully Programme currently included a 21-day target for clearing reported blockages, whereas there was previously no timeline. It should read, the proposed strategy included a 21-day target for clearing reported blockages, whereas there is currently no timeline.
Thank you very much, Dan. Anybody else? No. Okay. On that case, I will recommend that the minutes are approved and carried. Thank you, Dan.
Chair.
Right. Next, on to the action log.
Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Bradley.
No, abstain because I wasn't at that meeting. Thank you.
That's fair enough. No problem. Okay, onto the action log. Members, we've been given an updated version of the action log this morning, so you should have a physical printed copy of that one. Do any officers or members have any comments on the action log? No? Okay. Brilliant. So moving on to the main agenda, we have 7 public questions for the committee today, all of which relate to agenda item 6, which is the Cottenham 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. The applicants will be invited to speak at the start of that item. We're also going to move that item up to be the first substantive item. We have also received a petition signed by 1,223 people calling for the council to commit to transforming the pedestrian experience along the whole of Mill Road. I'd like to invite Anna Williams from CamCycle, and I believe we've got some people from Mill Road for People as well to come up and present the petition. Should you come up to the desk? Brilliant. Thank you very much. If you'd like to introduce yourselves, you then have 3 minutes to present your petition. There's a set of traffic lights in front of you that you'll see on that big table. It will go amber when you have 30 seconds remaining. But over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm Anna from CamCycle, and this is Tina from Mill Road for People. We're here representing 4 community groups who have raised a petition to the council. The other 2 are Cambridge Living Streets, the local branch of the Walking Charity, and Cambridgeshire Families for Sustainable Travel. So on the 12th of July 2022, this committee agreed to set in motion a TRO restricting Mill Road Bridge to pedestrians, bikes, buses and taxis. This TRO has indeed made some difference to the road, and the Romsey side in particular has benefited from the reduction in cars. But this committee also agreed to work with other authorities to develop a public realm improvement scheme along Mill Road. It's time to get moving on this work. We know that the community is desperate for a positive and uniting vision for Mill Road. When our groups worked with local architects last year to propose some suggestions for the street, one response to the headlines made in the local paper said it was an exciting opportunity to create a street that was so much more than a sad, neglected traffic corridor, but instead became an environment fit for the expanding number of residents and the many thriving local businesses. A well-planned street scheme would benefit businesses, mitigating any inconvenience that might be felt from the bridge restrictions. It would bring clear benefit to pedestrians, enabling them to walk without tripping on cracked and wonky pavements. It would benefit visitors as well, and even wildlife through increased planting and greenery.
On Mill Road right now, the pavements are indeed cracked, but ironically, pedestrians are saved from tripping over them because there are frequently cars parked on those pavements, squeezing pedestrians into single files or onto the road itself. Rat running along the Petersfield side roads towards the station continues unabated. Emptier stretches of Mill Road encourage speeding, and recent data gathered in Romsey shows speeds of as much as 60 miles an hour in this 20-mile-an-hour limit area. The GCP last March decided to bring the Fulbourn Greenway along Mill Road, but there are as yet no public plans for community engagement. The County Council, we think, needs to strongly support the work going on and use its own funding to ensure the whole project gets delivered in a way that benefits the whole streets as quickly as possible. CamCycle, Living Streets, Mill Road for People and Cambridgeshire Families for Sustainable Travel have, as you've just been told, submitted a petition signed by over 1,200 people. It asks you to, 1, ensure that the officers and councillors are committed to work on the Mill Road vision and support the GCP in their work, focusing on a scheme that will transform the street. And 2, identify funding for the implementation of improvements. Several £100s of money have been raised from busgate fines, and you also have funding pots for highway maintenance and other investment. Our question for you is, what will you do today to expedite real improvements to benefit Mill Road?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for bringing this petition to us. Well, Mill Road holds a very special place in my heart. When I first moved to Cambridge, my first place was at the end of Mill Road, so it has been a place that's always felt quite strong in my heart, and I do fully support your ambitions of making sure that Mill Road has the improvements and becomes the hub of the community that it really needs to be. I'm going to hand over to David to give you a formal response, but then I'm going to say a little bit more myself, hopefully afterwards. David.
Thanks, Chair. Also my first Cambridge home as well, Mill Road. Following implementation of the busgate, the data we've gathered does demonstrate that there have been improvements in the environment, reductions of traffic and the rate of collisions on Mill Road, but we know there's more to do, and the TRO has unlocked further opportunities regarding the street scene, just as you've set out. The Council is currently working with the GCP, Greater Cambridge Partnership, and the City Council to pull together a programme of workshops and drop-in events for this year, which will ensure community and business concerns and ideas are front and centre of the development of proposals for change. Some members of the community have already put forward ideas, and they will be carefully considered as part of that process, as well as any other ideas and suggestions identified by residents and business owners. An architect and urban design company based off Mill Road have been commissioned to oversee this co-design work and to assemble the concept designs. Community events will be hosted to ensure that the feedback is integral to those proposals. So yes, the Council will work with the GCP and we will identify and implement short, medium and long-term measures. The GCP has allocated £600,000 to the design and delivery process. And in terms of the repairs and the need for repairs, works to carry out localised repairs in terms of patching and pothole repairs and to refresh the road markings will be in sight early in the new financial year, subject to the availability of road space. And we've allocated up to £370,000 to commence those works as well. Thank you for bringing the petition.
Thank you. Also, David, I know when we look at agenda planning and forward plans, that's to be done via our spokes process, but I'm hoping that spokes might support me, that we might be able to add Mill Road to the forward agenda plan to bring an update paper to this committee. Can we add that to the spokes agenda plan then to do that? Because I think it would be worthwhile us bringing an update and making sure we really are carrying forward the improvements Mill Road needs. Brilliant. Thank you both for coming along and for presenting. And I really hope we can make a meaningful difference to Mill Road. Thank you. Brilliant. Now, due to the number of public speakers we have for agenda item 6, which is the Cottenham 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, I'm exercising my discretion as chair, and we're going to vary the order of business and take that as the next substantive item. So item 6 is a report on the proposed 20-mile-an-hour speed limit for Cottenham. And to start with, it's going to be introduced by Richard Ling, who is the interim head of parking and traffic management. Richard, do you want to come and introduce first, and then we'll head over to public questions?
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members. This paper requests the H&T Committee to determine the received objections and representations regarding the proposal to introduce a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit and 40-mile-an-hour speed limit buffer zones in Cottenham. This is covered in agenda item 6 in your papers. I'm joined today by Don O'Shea from our Policy and Regulation team and Michael Martin, who is the Senior Project Manager for the scheme. The Cottenham Speed Limit project is funded within the 20-mile-an-hour funding initiative. This initiative provides the opportunity for applications to be made from our communities. The Cottenham application was submitted by the Parish Council and was prioritised for funding within the 23-24 funding round at the H&T Committee on the 3rd of October 23. Following funding award, the project was developed by project officers in collaboration with the Parish Council. The proposed Cottenham speed limit order was published in the Cambridge News on the 4th of December 24, and the statutory consultation period ran from the 4th of December 24 to the 3rd of January 25. It was extended to 30 days above the statutory 21 days to account for the holiday period. The statutory advert invited the public to formally support or object to the proposal, citing their reasons. As detailed in the report, we received 303 responses. These included 156 objections, 33 partial objections, 93 supportive responses, 20 partially supportive responses, and 1 neutral response. The details of the responses received are provided in Appendix 7. Due to the level of responses received, the time to collate and review the comments took longer than originally planned. Following this process, it was agreed that the feedback would be best presented to the committee rather than through the delegated decision path. I would like to clarify a part of Section 4 within the main report document. The information included in points 4.2, 3, 4, and 5 and 6 are based on the widely available information arising from the Transport for Wales 20-mile-an-hour project. At time of presenting this report, we do not yet have such information available to demonstrate the benefits being realised here in Cambridgeshire. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Richard. Okay, so I would now like to invite members of the public to present their questions to the committee. Can I remind you, you will have 3 minutes to do so. So when you come forward, you'll find there's a microphone. If you press the button in the middle, it will turn red, which says that you're on. You then have 3 minutes. There's a green traffic light. It will turn amber when you have 30 seconds left. We are quite pushed for time today at this meeting. We've got quite a lot of agenda items, so I am going to be slightly strict on the 3 minutes, if that's okay. Brilliant. So first up, I have Paul Mapplethorpe. Paul, do you want to come forwards and present your question or comment?
Yes, thank you for letting me speak today. I'm very concerned about this application because it does not have the full support of the village. The parish council's own referendum had very low turnout, and only a very small number of people, 139 people, actually wanted blanket coverage of the village, and that's a tiny amount. The parish council also made an incorrect statement in our application. They said that the neighbourhood plan, which was accepted unanimously by the village, proved that the village accepted a 20-mile-an-hour limit. It doesn't. The neighbourhood plan does not mention a village-wide 20-mile-an-hour limit. It only mentions a small string of 20 miles an hour for the village core, and that's about 800 metres long in the central core of the village. So it's totally wrong to claim that the neighbourhood plan endorses the thing, because it doesn't. It says central village, and it means central village. So I believe that should be struck out. Looking at the support material for this meeting, your own consultation period, as your colleague said here, showed many more objections than acceptances, which really does go to prove that this isn't a very welcome thing for the village. The analysis that was done clearly tries to discredit the objectors and try to make them look a little bit silly, but they're not silly. These people have taken the trouble to write in and object to the thing because it's their village and their community, and that's what they want. They don't want the 20 miles an hour, and that's what it is. So they shouldn't be discredited. They should be listened to, and your own consultation shows that many more people are against it than for it. So I would ask the committee that they must push back on this. They must strike out the overwhelming support that was stated in the application, because there isn't overwhelming support from the village. And they must push back against their own documentation here that suggests that that the people that have complained are mistaken or things, as they're not. We really do need to listen to the people. If this application is rejected, it will not harm the county council's ambition to introduce 20-mile-an-hour limits, because the money that's ring-fenced will just ripple down to other communities where the inhabitants probably do really need or want the thing. So I say vote against it. And thank you for your time, please.
Thank you very much, Paul. Next up, I've got Councillor Aline Wilson. Councillor Wilson, good to see you here today. If you want to come forwards. Thank you very much. I'm sure you know the drill, so you have your 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Chair. So I'm speaking for both South Cambs District Councillors for Cottenham on behalf of the residents who support the 20-mile-per-hour scheme. The need to reduce traffic speed in the village has been a perennial casework issue for councillors. Cottenham is a large and growing village with some 500 new homes being built in recent years at the edge of the village. New residents, many being young families, face a difficult pedestrian journey across busy roads such as Rampton Road without adequate pedestrian provision to access village amenities, including schools, GP surgeries, shops, community and hospitality venues. It is a linear village where cycling should be popular, but the speed and volume of traffic, including HGVs and farm vehicles with huge unguarded wheels travelling at speed along narrow roads, makes cycling unappealing. The same goes for walking. Comments received from residents recount their experience. Just a few examples. One speaks to the difficulty of walking to school with children on scooters and babies in buggies along narrow pavements with cars, HGVs and pedestrians travelling in close proximity to each other, with vehicles moving at intimidating speeds. Another living on the high street tells of the noise and pollution caused by fast-moving traffic very close to homes because of the narrow pavements. A third relates their experience of living in Histon Road, where they have witnessed fatalities and accidents caused by speed, and hoping that the 20-mile-an-hour limit will one day be extended to Histon Road. All fully support the 20-mile-per-hour scheme. The volume and speed of traffic is exacerbated by rat running. Drivers avoid stretches of the A10 and A14 by rat running through Cottenham instead of using the Milton interchange. Cottenham is a de facto relief road when the A10 is busy or there's an accident. This will increase as Waterbeach and Northstowe are built out. More traffic travelling along these narrow streets at 30 miles per hour will reduce even further any pleasure to be taken from active travel options. In short, the 30 miles per hour speed limit in built-up areas introduced 90 years ago did not anticipate the volume of traffic or the size and power of modern vehicles, nor were the streets in Cottenham designed to accommodate those vehicles. No one believes that a 20-mile-per-hour scheme is a panacea for all these problems, but it would be a step in the right direction. There have been objections in response to the County Council, as we've heard, but none of the objectors has provided a reasonable argument. We thank the officers for their thorough evaluation addressing those assertions with facts. Although the objectors at this stage showed a majority, those who had already responded positively to the parish council surveys and consultation have said they believed that the matter had been agreed and would go ahead without further comments being required, so they didn't respond to that particular consultation. Quite simply, there is every reason to approve this in line with the officer's recommendation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Eileen, there. And I noticed we forgot to turn on the traffic lights, so you did very well out of that one. Brilliant. Before I go further, Richard, are there any questions or points that you want to address? I didn't detect any questions, but is there anything you want to respond to those two?
Just noting the comments just now, support for the scheme. The previous one, just say this stage, it's the statutory stage. It's not a referendum that we're looking at. You know, I do a lot of delegate decisions of 20-mile-an-hour limits and double yellow line orders and things. Although there are a lot of objections, there's also quite a lot of noting there's quite a lot of support coming in as well. The level of responses, you won't get everybody in a parish council area responding to a survey. So, you know, the level that we've got is quite high for a scheme of this sort. So, you know, we say, well, 80% of the village haven't supported this. That is quite a common thing to have through this process. You know, you don't get everybody providing a response. So, yeah, just sort of feedback on that. Sorry, Chair. Also, note, there was informal consultation done by the parish council previously. There was 327 comments. That's noted in paragraph 2.7 in the report. At that stage, 66%, I think, supported the implementation of the 20-mile-an-hour scheme. So you tend to have a different response when you get to the informal stage and the statutory stage.
Thank you very much, Richard. My next question comes from Rob Maltaz. Is Rob online, I believe? Is that correct?
Yeah, here we are. Can you hear me?
Let me switch over. Rob, we can see you. Can you hear us?
I can hear you, yes.
Brilliant. Well, Rob, I don't know whether you can see the traffic lights, but you have 3 minutes, so I'm going to hand over to you now. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, and good morning all. My wife and I became Cottenham residents about a year ago. We are glad we moved to this village. We enjoy the location and the many amenities and the community. However, the traffic situation is less easy to live with. Living in a house that fronts onto Denmark Road, one of the village's through roads, means that we have to endure quite high levels of traffic noise at all times of day, and also ground vibration from the many HGVs that rumble by. They can go surprisingly fast past our front door. One of the first things we did after purchasing the house was to improve the windows and doors specifically to lessen the impact of this intrusion. Walking through the village can be difficult, especially with our grandchildren. There are few dedicated safe crossing areas. The traffic can be constant and fast-moving and intimidating. For families with children who walk to and from school and friends, it must be quite a worry. We're both keen to use our push bikes to get around the village. The lengthy high street could be perfect for that. But with the traffic speed and volume as it is, we've yet to cycle anywhere. And very few people, it seems, do. Is it not time that the balance in the uneasy relationship between all road users in the village moves slightly to favour those not behind the steering wheel? A 20-mile-an-hour limit works in many other communities, similar villages, and most boroughs of London. It has positive results on levels of road accidents, cycling, walking, traffic noise, and air quality, with no significant increase in journey times or congestion. So why not in Cottenham? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rob. Following that, I've got former councillor Neil Goff, I believe. Is Neil online? Do we have? Okay.
Yeah, I am indeed, Chair. I'm here.
Brilliant. Neil, we can hear you, but we can't see you. So I'm going to let you continue anyway.
Okay, there you go.
Now we can see you.
Now you can see me as well.
Now we can see you. Over to you, Neil. You've got 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Chair. As mentioned, I was the previous county councillor for Cottenham and actually a substitute on this committee, but I speak as a resident. In the first round of funding, this scheme was scored by this committee as the very best put forward and seen as an exemplar for other villages. Because in my view, the benefits to Cottenham are so compelling, and even more so now because neighbouring villages have introduced 20-mile-per-hour zones, and Cottenham has become the fast straight in between, literally for some of our long straight roads in the village. We have a vibrant high street, but it could be even better if it were less blighted. Slower traffic would make the public realm safer and much more pleasant. Slower traffic would also reduce the impact of traffic noise and vibration on residents, as some housing in the village is very close to the road. Key roads in the village are difficult to cross safely at key places. It is intimidating for ordinary pedestrians and cyclists to be that proximate to traffic travelling at 30 miles per hour. It can be absolutely frightening to watch elderly people on mobility scooters. But this is the point where local knowledge is so important. Because if members of the committee haven't observed just how close HGVs going south on the B1049 are to the front doors of houses at the top of Histon Road, or further north between the Co-op and Denmark Road, or if they haven't seen students trying to run the gauntlet of the cars at the top of Denmark Road, where there's a busy T-junction but no median, while they're walking on their way to Cottenham Village College, or if they haven't seen parents with pushchairs and toddlers trying to cross the traffic on Rampton Road on the way from the new housing developments to the primary school, or if they haven't wondered how the beautiful triangular village green would be so much nicer if the traffic on all sides were going slower, then they should really take on board the officer's report and the local knowledge, experience and views of the locally elected members and the parish council, who I have to say have worked so hard on this to make our community nicer, and they should support the scheme. Most of the objections are spurious and based on misconceptions, which officers have considered and fairly dismissed. I'm really grateful that the officers have taken the benefits of this scheme for the village on board and support the recommendations. I trust you will too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neil. I next have Peter Hewitt, who again I believe is online. We have Peter. There we go. Hello, Peter. Can you hear us?
Good morning. I can hear you. Yes, thank you.
Brilliant. Over to you then. Again, you have 3 minutes.
Hello. I'm speaking in favour of the 20-mile-an-hour zone for Cottenham. Me and my family have lived in the village for 27 years, and I have brought my children up and educated them there. Whilst I am a driver, I am also a regular cycler from the village to Cambridge North Station for work. And I know that whilst the Histon 20-mile-an-hour zone has not been fully welcomed by all, as a cyclist, I can say that there's been a noticeable improvement in safety that I feel when cycling through Histon. And I would like to feel that same feeling whilst cycling at the beginning of my journey, as I do through Histon and in fact through London, where much of it is 20 mile an hour. I was a parish councillor for 5 years and chair of the Highways Committee for the period of the scheme's development, during which parishioner consultation was carried out, including undertaking vehicle speed data capture, involvement in the neighbourhood plan, public presentations and open evenings. During this time, I had the full support of the parish council, and in my view, the majority of the residents were also in favour, and this was borne out by a village-wide survey where 327 people voted and 66% of those who voted approved for the scheme. And this drove how the parish council developed their recommended scheme. In talking at the open evenings to those who opposed the scheme, many of them were, whilst they opposed a broad scheme across the entire village, were in favour of the 800-metre core within the neighbourhood plan and restrictions around the 2 large schools. What many of those objectors didn't appreciate until I was able to demonstrate it to them on maps and plans was that when you cover the central 800-meter core and a reasonable amount around each of the two schools and the crossing points that are needed from the new developments, that actually covers the majority of the scope that was covered by the parish council. It has also been highlighted that there are issues associated with travel times with 20 mile an hour. As a cyclist, I can tell you that the majority of the cars that pass me when cycling into Histon, I then pass when I enter into Histon itself, because it's not the 20 mile an hour zones that caused any issues of travel times. It is the traffic lights. And so this is a spurious argument. There have also been discussions about whether or not fatalities have occurred. And I don't believe that fatality should be something that should be used as a means by which you identify issues within the village. I believe that 20 miles an hour will make a major improvement to the village and the environment and road safety for pedestrians in the village. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Darren. Perfectly timed, if I do say so. Thank you very much. Just for the sake of speed, because we've got quite a packed agenda, Richard, if it's okay with you, I'm going to wait until we've done them all before coming back to you in case there's anything you want to respond to. So next on my list, I've got Councillor Tim Jones. Thank you, Tim. And again, over to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee. Yeah, I'm Tim.
Could you hold it a bit closer to you just so we can hear you a little bit better?
Is that better? Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Tim Jones. I'm the chair of Cottenham Parish Council, and I thought it would be just worth going over a little bit of the history of how long we have been working on 20 mile an hour in the village and where it came from in the first place. So as we've heard, so Cottenham is a village of around 6,000 to 7,000 people. It was just over 6,000 in the 2011 census. And residents living mainly on the arterial roads through the village, on small streets, small historic streets off those arterial roads, and in several modern developments, largely on the edges of the village. So traffic issues were among the key themes raised in the public meetings in developing the neighbourhood plan, as we've heard, in 2017. Predominantly issues around speeding, HGVs, rat running, and the poor and narrow pavements, but as also heard, lack of crossing facilities. As a result of that, as we know, neighbourhood plan doesn't really cover traffic and transport issues. But the strength of feeling was such that a community work group was set up to develop a transport strategy that the parish council could support. And that included the 20 mile an hour zone that we've heard about, and that was included as a supplement to the neighbourhood plan, which was made after a referendum in 2021. We added the objective of establishing a 20 mile an hour zone in the village to our 4-year transport strategy in 2019. And again, the key objectives that we've heard before, and Councillor Gough, Neil Gough mentioned, about improving the environment in the village was a large part of that. But also reducing accidents, obviously, and encouraging walking and cycling through an increased perception of safety on the road. We put forward some options for potential schemes, and those were presented to the Parish Council Highways Committee in 2022 and recommended to the full council. We published some articles detailing those potential options. We had a public survey that we've heard about and 3 drop-in sessions in various locations in the village, plus also published it in the Village-wise newsletters going to all residents on the website, community notice boards and Facebook groups in August and September. We've heard about the responses that survey received, which are broadly in line, but an exact mirror of those received in the TRO consultation. So it's about 2/3 in favour and 1/3 against. Looking at the traffic lights, I'll cut to the chase. So to the best of the parish council's understanding, The 20-mile-an-hour scheme retains the support of the Cottenham community, and the Parish Council asks that the committee finally approves its implementation. Thank you.
Thank you very much there, Tim. We have one final question, I believe, which is Paul Jobling. Paul, you're in the room.
Good morning,
Thank
everyone.
you very much, Paul. 3 minutes, over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm Paul Jobling. I'm here speaking in my own right as a resident of Cottenham, a cyclist and a motorist. And I'm speaking against the 20-mile-an-hour limit. Now, I've heard the arguments, but I've also heard that the majority, if I heard it correctly, the majority of people who responded did not want this 20-mile-an-hour limit. I don't believe it will increase road safety. I don't believe it will reduce accidents or injuries. I don't believe it's necessary. And I think we're not only slowing down the village, we're slowing down the economy. So I hear people asking, well, how can reduce the speed limit at 20 miles an hour not reduce injuries? Well, I'll give you an example straight away. An airbag on a car, on most cars, don't go off at 20 miles an hour. You've got to be doing about 25 to 30 miles an hour before an airbag goes off. So I'd feel a lot safer driving knowing that airbag's going to go off if I was unfortunately in a collision. So 20 miles an hour, right, okay, it's bound to reduce accidents, it's bound to increase road safety. Well, not according to the University of Cambridge, and I've got the article if you want to see it. They concluded reducing speed limits from 30 to 20 miles an hour had, in quotes, little impact on road safety. And that was a joint study by Cambridge, Belfast, and Edinburgh University. And that was mirrored in a study by the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health. Now, they said our findings showed that the city centre 20-mile-an-hour intervention had little impact, same words, on long-term outcomes, including road traffic collisions, casualties, and speed. All that's happening here is there's going to be no increase in safety and just an increase in inconvenience. You know, when you're driving down the road, not everyone travels at the limit. Some people go under the limit. So at 20 miles an hour, you can get frustrated motorists overtaking. And if they do that, that's definitely going to increase the chances of an accident or chances of hitting a pedestrian walking in the road. I mean, I've lived in Camborne before I moved to Cottenham, and they introduced a 20-mile-an-hour limit. I had never seen a road traffic accident in Camborne until they introduced the 20-mile-an-hour limit. And since then, I've seen several. So I drive through Cottenham anyway. I have to. I live right at the top of the high street. And, you know, with all of the potholes and everything else, you very rarely get to 30 miles an hour anyway. There's no the amber light going on, so I'll kind of cut to the chase. So I've lived in Cottenham for 4 years. I've never seen a road traffic accident. I've never seen a pedestrian injured. Now, in the papers issued by the council, there's only been 2 serious accidents in the past 4 years, and reading the details, I don't think they would be changed by a 20-mile-an-hour limit. There was an accident in 2025 on Beach Road, but that would not be changed by a 20-mile-an-hour limit.
Can I ask you to bring your comments to a close?
I will do, absolutely. And so in summary, changing things isn't necessarily improving things. There's activity and there's action. This is just activity.
Paul, please, your time is up, so
Okay,
please just
right.
the very last
Right.
bit.
In summary, I would like you to reject this proposal for the 20-mile-an-hour limit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, before we go any further, Richard, are there any points in those questions that you want to respond to?
If we do the last presentation first, I've got a printout of the accident record over the last 5 years in the Cottenham area. There's been 18 personally recorded injury accidents by the police, so these are not even including damage onlys. 12 slight accidents and 6 serious accidents. So I'm happy to give this to the presenter if Chair is happy. I think I've also provided
Yes,
that.
I'm happy to do that. Would you be able to just quickly for the committee explain the difference between a slight and a serious accident?
A slight is fatal, naturally. We know what fatal is. Serious is where you go to hospital for a longer period. I don't know the exact. I do have somebody behind me who probably knows clearly, but you know, the thing is, a serious can very quickly get to a fatal accident. Breaking bones, breaking a hip could easily get to a fatal in certain people. So, sorry, I can't be more clear than that.
That's okay. Thank you very much. Hang on. Don's going.
Don, please feel free.
Microphone on.
Sorry, Chair. A slight collision involves minor injuries like sprains, bruises, and whiplash, while serious collisions involve severe injuries such as fractures, internal injuries, and severe cuts and concussions. And the hospitals and the hospital stays a potential of death within 30 days. So that's the difference between a slight and a serious.
Thank you very much for that. Sorry, I just thought that was useful clarification given the number of serious accidents recorded.
Could you just,
Councillor Braddon?
thank you. Could I just ask through you, Mr. Ling, to just remind us over what period were those numbers that you gave us?
Yes, Chair, that was from the 1st of January 21 to the 15th of January 26. So that was 18 accidents, 12 slight accidents, and 6 serious accidents.
Thank you very much.
In regards to the amount of objections, again, I'll say again, it's not a referendum. That was commented. Comment about an airbag. I think the airbag is actually to mitigate, some accidents. A seatbelt will protect you. For an airbag to go off, it's actually a serious thing anyway. It can actually cause injuries. So that's the reason for the airbag. I think that addresses that. The other one, the comments about support for the paper.
Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone that came to ask questions. Before I go any further, I also have Councillor Yasmin Detter, who is the local member for Cottenham and Willingham. Yasmin, do you want to come across and address the committee? Now, you technically don't have a time limit, but please, for all of us, keep it fairly brief. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So as the County Councillor for Cottenham, I want to briefly reflect what I constantly hear from residents when I'm not out knocking on doors. The speed and weight of traffic are by far the most frequently raised concerns. This is not an occasional issue, it is the dominant theme of conversations with residents. Cottenham is a large linear village with homes, shops and pedestrians immediately adjacent to the carriageway. At 30 miles per hour, traffic feels intimidating, noisy, and out of keeping with the village environment. A 20 mile per hour limit would better reflect the character of Cottenham and would improve both perceived and actual safety. Cottenham already experiences rat running, as mentioned by other speakers, with drivers using the village as a shortcut rather than a destination. By definition, rat runners tend to travel faster and with less regard for the local environment. This problem is likely to intensify as further homes are occupied at Northstowe and Waterbeach. Introducing a 20 mile per hour scheme would help discourage through traffic and send a clear message that Cottenham is a place to live, not a route to drive through at speed. Residents also regularly raise the number of cats being killed on our roads, which is deeply upsetting for families and speaks to traffic travelling too fast for a residential environment. Many make the point that if vehicles are moving at speeds where pets are being struck so frequently, it is uncomfortably close to being a child, elderly resident or cyclist next. The proposed zone includes 2 major schools, both depend heavily on walking and cycling, yet parents regularly tell me that traffic speed is the main reason children are driven rather than allowed to travel independently. Slower traffic would make walking and cycling feel safer, support active travel and help reduce congestion at peak times. Finally, I would note that I actively campaigned on this specific issue during the County Council elections and residents were clear in their support. I therefore ask committee to support the wishes of Cottenham residents and to approve the recommendation. This scheme has a strong local support, follows parish-led consultation and reflects what residents are asking for. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Yasmin. Now, members, we've obviously had quite a lot of questions there. By my count, it was about 6 in favour, 2 against in this room. Obviously, we've also seen the consultation itself and the parish consultation. I think we have to be aware that whatever we decide today, there are going to be some people that are happy and some people that are less happy with the results. What I would ask, though, is that we please, in our debate, try and keep it charitable, fair, and not get down any of the difficult paths. We also do need to be aware that time today is a little bit tight. I want us to have a full debate on this one, but also the last item on the agenda is about our term service contract, and is a really important one that we have enough time to be able to give that the full attention it deserves. But I'm going to open it up to members now. If members have any comments or questions that they want to raise. Oh, you presented at the beginning. Richard, you've already presented the report as you're expecting, right? Or are you expecting to do another presentation of it?
For time, there is nothing further.
Brilliant. Thank you. Sorry. So members, Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you, Chair. Oops. Sorry. That's never happened to me before. I wanted to support this application for 20 miles per hour. I know Cottenham well, and many of the roads are very small. And as the members have eloquently described what it's like walking along those roads with lorries thundering beside you and, parents taking children to school. One of the things that I think is people might be ruminating about is whether people, and indeed one of the speakers spoke about it, was whether people will comply with this. My feeling is actually, broadly speaking, they will, because you'll always get people who overrun the speed limit in any given circumstance. They do in my own village in Milton. But broadly speaking, a zone of 20 miles per hour will encourage people to be aware that this is an area that we want you to consider as a residential area where you need to be careful, where there might be children coming out from between cars and such like. It sets a tone, it sets the atmosphere, and it sets the expectation of drivers when they go through residential areas like this. I also think it makes absolute sense to do it for the whole village, rather than changing speed limits here and there, as the gentleman described, Mr. Jones, I think it was. I think this is a sensible, coherent scheme for a village, which is a big village, but it has a lot of potential to be a much kinder environment for those wanting to undertake active travel. And I think that's to be applauded, to encourage children to take part in active travel from as early as they can. So I think this is a very good scheme. Well done to the Parish Council for doing such a good consultation and good engagement. And as others said, it seemed as if perhaps the County Council consultation, people hadn't realised they needed to take part in that as well. So maybe they didn't get quite the same response, But my feeling is that there's a good argument for this to be good sense. And it only takes a few people doing 20 miles per hour for everybody else behind them also to be waiting at 20 miles per hour and being respectful. So I support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bradnam. Next, I've got Councillor Galbraith.
Thank you, Chair. I do have a question, and then I have a point to make. So maybe I should ask the question first, and if I could then be allowed to go on to make my points. What is the cost of the implementation of this scheme? Simple question.
The estimated cost for operational delivery is up to £24,000. The original budget allocated to this project was £27,000.
Okay, thank you very much. My points are that I notice on the presentation and the statutory consultation, there is more people who object to this than do want it. I also noted that from the Parish Council's presentation, it's anecdotal. There's very little fact in there. And I understand people do get emotional about these things, but statistics show there's little improvement by bringing a limit down from 30 to 20. I have no statistics for Cottenham apart from the accidents, and I did read about their accidents. Only 2 of the accidents were deemed to be completely serious, and neither of them was down to speed. A lot of the presentation I heard was about crossings, etc., whether at traffic lights, zebra crossings, but that's not part of this debate, is it? We're talking about the implementation of a speed limit, but people were talking about crossings. Surely that must come back to a separate debate. A lorry travelling along a road at 30 miles an hour and 20 miles an hour is still dangerous, by what has been said, to a cyclist or a pedestrian. There is no evidence in here that any pedestrian has been hurt, apart from a small child I read about who'd fallen off the pavement. Another point was made by one of the speakers saying to slow down traffic in the middle of Cottenham. Well, I go through Cottenham a lot, and that's one place you have to slow down because the sleeping policemen there are quite significant. And if you go over about 10 miles an hour through those sleeping policemen, no matter the size of your car, you get a fair bump. I also didn't understand the point of somebody saying about the local councillor who made the point about Waterbeach. I'm not a resident of the area, but I don't understand where you're going to have more traffic from Waterbeach through Cottenham as a rat run. Where are these people from Waterbeach who go to Cottenham? Where are the rat running to? It must only be if the A10 is closed. Anyway, 30-mile limits have worked for decades. I don't see where this scheme is going to bring any possible improvement to the village. Cost between 24 and 27,000 could be used better elsewhere. And I, for one, would object to this scheme.
Thank you very much, Councillor Galbraith. There's a lot I want to respond to there, but I'm not going to for now. I'm going to leave it. Next up, I've got Councillor Clark, then Councillor Boulat.
Thank you, Chair. I think we've heard about the safety of the roads. I think if we look at the evidence from Wales that has been presented to us, that actually there is an increase in safety as you decrease speeds. A lorry hitting something, yes, at 20 miles an hour could still be damaging, but the majority of traffic through there is not lorries. And actually, the fact that a lorry is still damaging does not mean that a car would, say, be as damaging. And the speed is a key point, that as you decrease speed, it's not a linear decrease. You get a much improved safety through any collision that does occur. I think we are at the risk of letting the perfect be the enemy of the good here. I think we've heard from some of the speakers as well that not everyone will slow down, but as Councillor Bradnam says, it only takes a couple of people to slow down, then everyone has to go at 20 miles an hour. I think it's important that we do make the improvements that we can make. To me, this seems like quite a sensible scheme that has a lot of deliverable benefit that we can implement here today, and I will support the scheme in that mind.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. Councillor Boulat.
Thank you, Chair. I've been part of a few of the debates on 20 mile an hour, and I think what's really interesting to see is, I guess, the differences in the responses when we compare surveys led by parish councils, for example, or residents groups or local councillors, as opposed to this period of TRO objections, which inevitably, in my view, will attract more objections because, first of all, it comes from the council. So you're more likely to object to a proposal coming from the council rather than your local parish council or parish council or a residents group, for example. And also none of those, like whether we speak about the parish survey or the TRO, is a representative sample. So I think we do need to see all the evidence, obviously the more informal feedback, the evidence from councillors, the actual TRO objection response, and the evidence for and against as a whole, rather than just looking at the number itself, because none of those will represent a majority of residents, let alone a majority of people who would be perhaps seeing all the plans and being involved in this conversation. The main issue I have, like in general, like I guess the main question for officers is how confident are we that it is enforcing, because I see some 20-mile-an-hour schemes which worked really well and where they're really self-enforcing, and town centers tend to be more, better suited for that. But I've also seen some of the recently implemented ones where it's quite clear this main concern still remains speeding, although I do accept that perhaps the average speeds have decreased in some of those areas. And I think from a resident perspective, that's why often people notice it. Why are we spending money on a 20-mile-an-hour scheme if we don't have the enforcement in place? And then when residents say, okay, we need more speed bumps or whatever it might be, it's an LHI process, which obviously there won't be enough LHIs for everyone. So I think the question is around the enforcement and how confident we are. And I think in Cottenham is a good case to make that it can be self-enforcing. But overall, I think there's a lot of conversation about who enforces that, and Cambridgeshire still remains the fourth lowest funded police force. And I think I do appreciate all the work the police does, and I think it's quite unfair to say, well, the police should enforce that, because I know they don't have the resources to do more enforcement in this area, at least at the moment. So yeah, the question is like how confident we are that in this case in Cottenham we actually have a good case to say it can be enforced in most areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bulat. Richard, do you want to talk anything about the enforcement, or should we pick that up later? I can pick that up as well.
Thank you, Chair. So I'd like to address the first point there about the self-enforcing nature. The setting of local speed limits guidance note that's available from the government has the underlying aim for speed limits is to achieve a safe distribution of speeds. So I'll move closer. Thank you. Now there's categories or circumstances to that, and the history of collisions is something we've explored already. But the road geometry and the function and composition of road users is something which came across very strongly within the Cottenham application and the journey that the project has been on. Councillor De Her quite rightly explained that there is a thriving high street there, and there are traffic calming features already present in the southern and central areas of Cottenham. To the north, there are narrowings, but there's significantly more in the southern and central areas where the footfall is expected to be higher because of the commercial facilities that are there. Also in that southern area is the school, the college, I should say. In the central area is the primary school of Lambs Lane. So from our perspective, this is one of the more suiting areas to a 20-mile-per-hour. It certainly has the look and feel of a 20-mile-per-hour, particularly in those southern and central areas. And the northern area has traffic calming already in present, and we can explore further features if required to positively force adherence to the speed limit.
Brilliant. Thank you, Michael. And the statistic I remember hearing on this one as well, which is always interesting to me, that is for every 1 mile an hour slower of mean speed, it results in 6% reduction in accidents. So even if not everybody does 20 miles an hour, if you can reduce the overall mean speed, you can actually have a really meaningful difference on road safety. And we do indeed have a road safety paper coming later on to this committee. It's unfortunate this one we brought forward ahead of that. Next on my list, though, I've got Councillor Hathorn.
Thank you. Could I ask a question and then speak? So the question is, I emailed Michael Martin, the officer, yesterday, and I asked about what the cost would be of, say, speed reducing measures in Cottenham. So could you give me the cost of that, and also remind us of the cost of what the 20-mile-per-hour zone is going to be?
Thank you. So the overall budget that was provided or awarded to this project back in the funding round was £27,000. At the conclusion of detailed design, we determined that the project cost to operationally deliver this is to build the limit, was just over 22,000. Now, there has been some time since that estimate has occurred. So bearing in mind deliveries of other projects that have happened very recently, we don't foresee the cost of this operational delivery to exceed £24,000. That 27 does include the officer time, but overall we are still within budget. With regards to additional traffic calming, there are features that would need to be explored further by the community. For example, raised features like speed cushions. However, they are one of the more popular methods of positively calming traffic speeds. There are other features that are already present in Cottenham, for example, the narrowing features that I mentioned before. They could be coupled up as a dual purpose feature, where they're there for traffic calming, but also for improving pedestrian crossing points across the village. Particularly in the northern area, they are used for that purpose. And perhaps there could be ways of narrowing the carriageway further and making those crossing points more prominent.
And could I get you told me the cost of a scheme in St Neots with speed bumps? What was the cost of that scheme?
Apologies. So recently we have delivered a speed cushion scheme in Crosshall Road in St Neots. Similar project which originated from the community, and overall, once I get to the right numbers, we delivered that in the region of £60,000 to £65,000. That was a significant contribution from the community for that one.
Thank you. And I think that was for 9 sets of speed bumps. So the 20 mph scheme is a lot more affordable. So I'd quickly like to speak about Histon, because Histon has been referred to a lot in the comments and in the consultation responses. I'm the county councillor for Histon and Impington Division. It is the neighbouring village. We share the B1049, which is the main through route into Cambridge. So we have a 20 mph zone. It was not universally popular when it was implemented. There was a lot of conversation. Yeah, there has been a bit of a, it was not necessarily people not necessarily happy when the signage was put there, and there were people in advance who were complaining about it. We all ran for election last year. I spoke to a lot of people, and with one area exception, I only heard people speak in support of it and to thank the village for implementing a 20 mph zone. People were saying it has made tangible improvements. I know someone who lived on one of the arterial roads going west to east, and they said that, who had previously been in an accident, and they said that now they see, instead of seeing cars breaking the 30 mph previous speed limit and hurtling towards them at 40 mph, they're hurtling at them at 30 mph. So although people are still breaking the speed limit, the envelope of breaking the speed limit has reduced, so the overall speeds have reduced. So I think that is a really net positive thing. It has created a culture where people are more relaxed about allowing their children to cycle, and people themselves are more relaxed about cycling and walking in the village. It's not just about reducing accidents, it's about reducing the perception of accidents, and it is supporting and facilitating that culture of walking and cycling, speaking. There are some changes of speeds, and in the Histon version, and I look at the Cottenham version, I went to the consultation where the map is a bit clearer, and actually it's a much more pragmatic map of speeds than there is in Histon. So there is a sensible buffer zone where it would be probably unlikely that people would respect the 20 mph. It goes 40 to 30 in the south of the village. I think that's really sensible. The area in Histon where there is the most controversy is the north end of the B1049, ironically Cottenham Road. And there has been, when I knocked on doors at one point, everyone said there was lots of dangerous overtaking. A year later, those comments have disappeared. So actually we have a speed limit which took some time to bed in, but actually is really well received, has made a tangible difference. And I think the same would happen with the speed in Cottenham. So I will be supporting this, and I think it will make a tangible difference to the lives of people in Cottenham.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hathorn. Councillor Goldsack.
Thank you, Chair. Using only figures that I've heard and read related to this subject, I believe that what we've got, and this is another example of it, is unfortunately flawed democracy. Let me try and explain. Of the responses that the parish council had, there was 225 that were successful. That's 64. I think I was told 64 or 66%. I think it was of the responses that came back were in favour of it. That's 225 votes in favour of it. That's 3.5% of Cottenham's population. That's not democratic. That just doesn't work. Right? We have to be
reach more people than this? I don't know, but I bet, pound to a pinch of salt, there's vacancies on Cottenham Parish Council at this moment in time. I've got the chairman here. You've got a full parish council. If you have, congratulations, well done. So that means that most of your people on the parish council have been elected or co-opted. Right. So I'm getting nods and shakes both ways here. So I don't quite know the answer. That's fine. That's fine. Secondly, a parallel argument to this is I've read reports from Wales. I've read reports from city centres where they've cut the speed limits dramatically. And actually, guess what? The particulate rate on air quality hasn't changed that much. If not, it's got worse because you've got vehicles in lower gears putting out more for longer. All right. I love the smirks and the nods opposite. It's always reassuring. Yeah. Well, no, but the smirks were wild. The smirks were there. Okay, Chair, is that through you? No, it wasn't. Thank you. So my point I'm going to go on to say in here is that we've got a flawed process, right? I, for one, am involved in my ward of Soham and Isleham, and in Soham, we had a very similar exercise, and the turnout was so poor, we said go away and think again, and we could not support this because there wasn't enough people to support it. So I am in favour of 20 miles an hour zones around schools, around old people's homes, around massive main areas of pedestrianisation, to school routes, etc., etc. Blanket is not the answer. And I hate to say it, if I come up the A14 and find either the A14 or the A10 are possibly shut in the distance, I will turn left and come through Histon's new speed limit and abide by it. And I will come through Cottenham's if this is passed and abide by it. But unfortunately, in what's been presented today, I regret that I can't support it. I don't like the blanket bans on them. And I think you're impacting an awful lot of number of people that just haven't expressed their interest. So I'm sorry, I can't support this.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsack. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you very much, Chair. In the interest of time, Councillor Hathorn did ask my question, so we'll move on from there.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. That's very kind of you. Councillor Edge.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, thank you for the engagement from the residents. I think views both ways are really valuable in here. I am, though, a little bit concerned that more of the objections, considering the impacts of drivers, which is obviously important, I saw less of the objections that I've read or heard that draw on considerations of the wider road users or the impact on the local community in a large village with amenities throughout that should have good and safe movement for all members of the community. Unfortunately, I fear that HGVs rumbling at 20 miles an hour will still generate noise, but it will be considerably reduced. For me, road safety is one aspect of the intentions of the 20 mile per hour limit, but this is also about community. As a council, we have a growing ambition for active travel to school. Looking at statistics in one of the other papers today, highlighting accident rates, there is a proportionately higher rate of pedestrian accidents in under 25s. I support the recommendations, and if increasing active travel, we must make sure to mitigate the risks of our more vulnerable and young community members.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edge. Councillor Fane.
Thank you, Chair. We've had a lot of contributions to this debate, but I'm encouraged by what you said about wanting a full debate, so I shall go ahead. I admit to being a sceptic about village-wide 20 mile an hour schemes. To some extent, I share the views of Councillor Goldsack. I think we have to take very seriously the concerns raised by Paul Jobling and, forgive my pronunciation, Mr. McElderham too, and the report referred to Queen's University and Cambridge University, which does say, and I'm afraid I haven't read the full report, I wasn't previously aware of it, that 20 mph speed limit intervention at city centre scale had little impact on long-term outcomes, including road traffic collisions. It goes on to conclude policymakers considering implementing 20 mph speed limit interventions should consider the fidelity, context and scale of implementation. What do I mean by fidelity? Apparently that's enforceability. Context, well, this is a very different context, I think, and I think we should focus on the particular context of Cottenham, as those with more local connections than myself have sought to do. And I would certainly say not everyone will agree on this, but I don't think we can wait for everybody to support a particular scheme. This has been through many consultations. The neighbourhood plan, which got very widespread support, okay, it's not the determinant on this matter. And we've heard also from the parish council and the local councillors who have done a lot of work on this over a long period, which we should respect. In relation to village-wide schemes, I would say the reason I am concerned about those is sometimes you undermine the hierarchy of road schemes, and we need to find ways of discouraging people from driving on those roads which are least able to cope with it. But it is different here. As members will see from the map on page 110 of our papers, there is the A10 alternative. So we're talking, as the local member said, about discouraging through traffic. Of course, a 20 mph zone will not be enough on its own, and other measures, some of which are already in place in Cottenham, will need to be taken. And I take very seriously the concerns of those who said that crossings also are needed. But as officers said, that can be built on existing measures. So we have here a situation where the parish council, all the local councillors, have worked on this for some years and have broadly drawn up consensus on it. And we have also, I particularly respect the situation that the local member specifically campaigned on this only about 8 months ago. And I think that is something which we as Democrats have to take very seriously. So whilst I take on board all the concerns that were raised, having read the papers and heard both the objections and the support for this scheme, it is clear to me that we as a committee should support this scheme and accept the recommendations today.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fane. I am quite aware of time, but I've still got Councillor Manning and Councillor Sidlow. Councillor Manning.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just be brief and explain why I'm going to support this. And that's the couple of the questions on both sides of the table have teased out. The cost of this is 24,000. I think we originally said we estimated at 27, but it obviously came down to 24. Look, the evidence around 20-mile schemes is mixed. You know, it works in some places, it doesn't work in others. But what it isn't is negative. Try and find a study that increases speeds when you put a 20-mile zone. Doesn't exist. The Cambridge University study just says, well, it wasn't quite perfect on a citywide scale. But if I come back to that figure of 24,000 and why I'm supporting this, one serious collision at 20 miles an hour rather than 30 miles an hour saves a lot more than £24,000 in someone's life. And that's why I'm supporting it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Manning. Councillor Sidlow.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question and then some points to make. The safety has been brought up a lot, but we heard about the university study that said it didn't really decrease accidents, and then we've had quotes from Wales. I know this, wasn't very popular in Wales, but also we're not in Wales. So, do we have any reports considering how many 20-mile-an-hour zones have been implemented across Cambridgeshire in recent years? Do we have any safety data that shows a reduction in accidents actually within this context?
Things mentioned before, we were referring to the Wales because there's a bit more evidence in there, but we don't have any reports within Cambridgeshire itself.
Okay, thank you. And a lot of the points around safety in the village of Cottenham are talking about the nature of the traffic and the volume. And this isn't going to change any of that. HGV, I'm from Ramsey, and we've got 20-mile-an-hour zone. It's not changed the nature of the traffic coming through. There's still a lot of farm traffic. There's still a lot of HGVs. and I'm still getting a lot of concerned residents contacting me, especially about schools. Now, I definitely support 20 mile an hour around schools. I think that this money could probably be better spent on putting in place that around schools or around care homes, along with signage, the flashing signs to alert people they're around a school. I don't think many people would speed if they saw that. Whereas people who ignore 30 mile an hour signs are going to ignore 20 mile an hour signs. They are going to still speed through the village. They still speed through Ramsey, although I will concede that the SIDS data from the local council has shown a reduction from about 33 miles an hour to about 25 miles an hour as average. However, the maximum speeds have not decreased. So I also agree with Councillor Goldsack that the number of responses is insufficient to decide that this is definitely what the public want, although I respect the councillor who has been door knocking and speaking to their local population. I was door knocking in Ramsey and I had a lot of negative comments about the 20 mile an hour zone in Ramsey. What was the other point? Oh, that the police will not be able to enforce this. They always say this whenever there's a consultation on 20 miles an hour. They can't enforce it. They can't enforce 30 miles an hour. The issue is not the speeding, it's the enforcement of the speed limit that's already in place. So I would suggest that it's the overdevelopment of the local area causing an increase in traffic, and there are more sensible ways of dealing with the traffic that's coming through Cottenham, i.e. putting in a weight limit, which would ensure the HGVs have to use the larger roads in the surrounding area, or making it so that there are signs saying local traffic only to prevent it being a rat run. Based on all of that, I can't support this motion at this point, although I would probably support a better thought out motion that addresses the issues I've raised. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sidlow. Actually, just to say that I'm very pleased to hear the data coming from Ramsey there about the actual reduction in speed, because I know that is something we are looking at, what actually happens there. I'm particularly pleased when you actually look at the accident data of fatalities at different speeds, that I believe at 30 miles an hour, it's about a 47% chance of somebody being killed if they're hit at 30 miles an hour versus 30% at 25 miles an hour and 17% at 20 miles an hour. So that is an issue on. Sorry, did you want to?
Point of clarification. I'm not disputing that. However, there isn't the data from similar villages that have implemented this to show there has actually been a reduction. That was my point.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that that's really, from a road safety perspective, quite positive to see that change. So I'm really pleased to hear that. Members, I don't think I have any more questions, and I would like to bring this to a close. So I would just say myself that looking at the data from Wales, I mean, this one is always a really difficult one, because where you look at a small scale, a village is a fairly small scale, the number of accidents that you have is generally not particularly high. And actually, in this case, it is pretty high, having 6 major accidents, which, you know, leave people in the hospital for a large period of time, potentially, and 12 slight ones. That is actually quite a lot. But often what you don't see is a reduction in number of accidents in a small area. What you see is a system-wide approach, and that the more areas that we move to 20 miles an hour, the more as a system we should hopefully reduce the amount of collisions, casualties within Cambridgeshire. Obviously, the data from Wales as outlined in this report shows that they're seeing around a 20% reduction in collisions after the blanket introduction of the 20 miles an hour there. So I do find that really quite interesting. The other point I would say myself is that we've heard people here say that they support 20 miles an hour around schools. As a dad to a fairly young parent that walks his child to school every day, and it's about a mile walk to school, I would say that actually where we have come into danger, and where my daughter has nearly been knocked off her bike by an HGV, it wasn't in the area immediate around the school. It was on the run up to the school. It was about a mile away from the school. And so therefore I do always find that argument quite a difficult one, because to me it's about the entire journey to school, not the immediate area outside the school. I care where my daughter gets hurt everywhere, not just in the vicinity of the school. So I think, to me, it is really important that we think about the entire journey to school when we think about road safety, rather than the key area outside it. We've heard a lot today, though, from many different people. I do understand this is a difficult decision, and there are mixed opinions on both sides of it. Thank you, everyone, though, for being civil. I think we have had a really good debate, and I think we've probably gone through all of the arguments on both sides. So I will move this to a vote now, though. So we are being asked to determine the formal objections to the speed limit as published without holding a public inquiry, and for the reasons set out in report and Appendix 4, Statement of Reasons, approve the proposed speed limits as advertised, and B, inform the objectors to the Cottenham speed limit order accordingly. Now, I'm going to guess that where the last couple of Highways Committee meetings we've been unanimous, that we might not be in this case, that we might need to take a vote on it. So I'm going to do that now. So can I say those in favour to start with, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those abstaining, raise your hands. And those against, please raise your hands.
Thanks.
So, Nick, do you want to read out the results of that?
Yep, that's 12 in favour and 3 against.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, everyone. That was a really good debate. And thank you to everyone that came along as well. I'm sorry if we didn't go the way that you would have liked, but I think it was a really good debate. And thank you very much for coming and speaking to us. Really appreciate it. Okay, members, I am very aware of time. We are slightly behind schedule already, but I think it was really worth us having that debate. The next item on the agenda, though, is the business planning. This is the business plan budget, and it will be presented by the Executive Director of Place and Sustainability, Frank Jordan, and the Executive Director of Finance and Resources, Michael Hudson. So, Frank and Michael, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. So the purpose of the report is for all members of the committee to scrutinise the business planning proposals for 26-27. It'll also enable the committee to provide advice and recommendations to support the proposed business plan being considered by Strategy, Resources and Performance Committee next Thursday, the 29th of January, when finally that committee will make its final recommendations to full council. As the Chair has outlined, I'm joined today by Michael Hudson, who's the Executive Director of Finance and Resources, who can also assist the committee. So what we will do is we'll note any of the questions or clarifications or any suggested recommendations, and we'll provide a summary at the end of the debate so that we feel like we've captured the key points that you'd like to feed into the Strategy, Resources and Performance Committee. So what the report summarises is the business plan proposals that were presented to Strategy, Resources and Performance Committee on the 11th of December. And what we've particularly done in the report, and I'll do in terms of a summary, is just pull out the key elements of the business plan that relate to highways and transport. But before I do that, just also highlight in section 1, that provides an overview of the review of the strategic framework that's been undertaken. And within that, there's a development of a revised vision and a set of revised ambitions for Cambridgeshire County Council, which is summarised in the table at table 1.1. Particularly highlights that the ambition priority, which relates to safe and sustainable transport routes, it should really be emphasised that highway maintenance and management is a core element of that ambition priority. And I think the other thing to clearly note for the committee, which has been a theme for several years, is that the strategic framework continues to take account of feedback we get from residents, and particularly the quality of life survey, but also we note some of the other feedback we get through things like the National Highways and Transport Survey, which clearly outlines whilst there's been an improvement in satisfaction in highways and transport services, there is still a significant element of low satisfaction and clearly a need for us to improve further, both in terms of services and the condition of the highway. So that's a key theme there. So section 2 of the report provides the overview of the corporate financial position. So at the time of writing the report, which was considered in December, there was a funding gap for the council of 6.4 million. However, that was before the draft local government settlement was received. That has now been received and been reviewed, and officers, and particularly Michael as the section 151 officer, is very likely to be able to confirm that based on the local government settlement, that the gap will be closed in terms of the proposals for 26-27. Then on section 3, particularly what that highlights is the contribution around the services that are made in relation to the council's ambition strategic framework, and it particularly highlights the extent of the highways and transport operation. And I won't read out all the detail there, but it's covered in the report. So I think the particular thing, just before I hand back to you, Chair, is that the key proposals in the business plan that relate to highways and transport. The first one is the proposed inclusion of a £2 million investment, which would actually be used to service £20 million worth of capital. So it's £2 million revenue that would enable £20 million worth of additional borrowing to be allocated for planned capital maintenance in the highway. And that is set against the context of the draft asset management strategy that was considered by this committee in December, noting that in the report it says it was endorsed. It wasn't. It was considered. That will be coming back to committee as a final draft in March. But what that asset management strategy did outline in terms of its data is that there's an ongoing investment requirement of £58 million per annum, and also notes the total asset backlog in the highway of 800 million. So the proposed allocation of 20 million would be on top of any funding that we get from central government. I think the key thing we'd highlight as well is that the central government funding is directed through the combined authority, and whilst we've got indicative allocations, we can't confirm those until the combined authority has reviewed this and confirmed its position. But at this stage, based on what we think the indicative allocations would be, plus the proposed 20 million, that would create a total planned maintenance capital programme of 58.3 million, so in line with the asset management recommendations. The actual detailed allocation of that will be subject to a separate report in March, which will be based on the capital prioritisation process that was agreed by this committee in December. And at that point, we'll have clarification of exactly what the funding through the combined authority will be. And then finally, Chair, in addition to that, there are other key proposals outlined in the business plan. I think particularly I would highlight is the development of a draft lane rental scheme, which would improve the management and coordination of street works, has potential to also increase the level of income for the council to direct that towards further investment in highways. However, that's not planned to actually be in implementation until 27-28, but a detailed report on that will come to committee in June. There are also, in terms of street works, proposed fee increases, and there are other methods in terms of improving the cost base of the highways and management and maintenance function, particularly around the management of fleet, which will deliver a saving, a better management of third-party claims, which will increase income. So further details of all the proposals are at 3.2 and further detail at Appendix 1. And then the final element, and then I'll hand back to you, Chair, is that the report also outlines the total capital programme for highways and transport. So that's everything on top of the planned capital maintenance. So the total programme is £80 million. So that includes the planned maintenance programme, planned health and safety works on the guided busway, safety improvement works on the highway, and other schemes, such as development of major schemes that we're doing in conjunction with the combined authority. So that's the key elements that we wish to draw attention for committee members. So I'll hand back to you, Chair, and I say we'll at the end of that, we'll come back with a summary of what we think the key points are. Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Councillor Manning, you can be first up.
Mine was just a technical question, which I believe there's an answer to. Table 3.5, I was just confused by the prudential borrowing brackets repayable line, because I was making the assumption that they related to each other, and thus why were the percentages all over the place. But yeah, if someone can just talk through that, I thought it might be useful, not just for me, but for everyone.
I need to pick that up. So those two funding lines don't relate to one another at all. Prudential borrowing repayable is what we used for funding on a project where that funding will in future years be replaced by a different funding source, normally Section 106, where it comes in as developments happen and as developers pay those Section 106 contributions. In the place and sustainability tables, it looks a bit odd because it's a large negative number as a total, and that's because the scheme that it mostly relates to is guided busway funding. So the guided busway scheme was a number of years in the past. We don't want to keep that scheme as a whole within the place and sustainability tables because it would, I guess it would overinflate the total sort of scheme value of the directorate at the moment, but we do have that funding line in which recognises when Section 106 contributions come in to repay the borrowing that was previously undertaken to pay for that scheme. So those lines don't relate to one another at all, and the interest is dealt with separately.
Thank you very much. Councillor Boulat.
Thank you, Chair. I have quite a few questions. Would it be right if I do a group of three, like in the order of importance? Thank you. The first one is around the needs-based formula, because of course in the previous administration, I know needs-based formula was introduced for highways maintenance. So just wanted to confirm that if there are any changes at all to that, or if we're keeping the same way to allocate this within the budget.
So in terms of the allocation that we would make as a county council in terms of the capital maintenance programme, that's in line with the capital prioritisation methodology that was considered by this committee in December. So that's the methodology we'll use.
Okay.
So this is clearly looking at the total amount of money that could be available, and then in March we'll bring the two elements together in terms of the total budget. Then it will be prioritised in line with that methodology and recommended to committee. Does that answer the question?
Thank you. Yeah,
thank
that's
you.
clear. Thank you. Second, on the lane rental scheme, so that's 8C154 on the table. I remember that something that has been discussed for a while, and obviously the chair has been very active to push that project forward. The paper does note it's subject to separate consultation. So given the progress so far on this and the need for this additional consultation, and I'm not so aware of the timeframes and how much work this will involve, I guess the question is how confident we are those savings numbers are realistic, and how much are we in control of this consultation timeframe as opposed to other agencies or bodies?
Yeah, thank you for that question as well, Councillor Balat. So I think it's worth noting for the committee that that number is indicative for 27-28. Clearly, we set the budget for 26-27, then provide a forward look for future years. So that number does have some basis in terms of what we think the income level would be if a rental scheme is introduced. However, just need to be really clear, there is a risk that that may not actually manifest because of two things. There's a requirement for the committee to consider this and then make a decision whether they want to consult on such a scheme. And then the second bit, it's subject to decision making by Secretary of State. So it is an indication of the level of income that could be achieved, but there is risk. However, as I've outlined, there's a clear plan in place that we'll present to committee in June. Okay.
That's clear. Of course, like I understand, we're still obviously committed to progress this, but not everything might be within our control, as you say. Thank you. Final one this round, if I may, Chair. On the in-house provision, so on the in-house asset inspection vehicles, I really welcome this. I think it's a good proposal. It does say it will, we're quite confident it will deliver a saving. So the question is, why have we considered more in-house provision that could have potentially made other savings, or was it this or was this the only one that we considered it was realistic at the time in the current context?
So this is an example of where managing the fleet elements of the operation will deliver a saving. However, there are other proposals around doing things differently in terms of the way we manage the operation. May not deliver a saving, but improve the way that we deliver the operations. Now, that would be included in the Highways Asset Management Strategy paper that's coming back to committee in March. So there are some further changes being made, but we didn't want to include this in the business plan because they won't deliver savings. Does that make sense? Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll stop here for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bula. And just your point on lane rental is a salient one. It is obviously something that we are incredibly keen on. I think it will benefit not just the finances of this authority, but also actually really bring about meaningful change for our residents, reducing the amount of streetworks overruns and actually making sure we really hold those streetworks contractors to account as much as we can. Obviously, though, having spoken to my other highways peers, there's a lot of other people looking at this wanting to do the same thing. So we do need to be aware of government time, and given I know how much time you spend in Parliament, if you want to be letting them know that they do need to be speeding along lane rental for everyone, that would be massively appreciated. Next up on my list, though, I have Councillor Galbraith.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question, really. It's something I was confused on, despite coming from a financial background. Could you just explain to me in a little bit more detail how a £2 million cost then becomes a £20 million investment? Did I hear that right? Can we ask for a more detailed explanation of that?
I mean, I wonder if Becky may wish to explain it, but effectively the £2 million is the borrowing cost. So effectively what's being proposed is debt financing to increase the capital programme, and the cost of that debt is £2 million, which is included in the budget. But Becky, is there anything you'd want to add to that?
No, that's good, reasonable explanation. Yeah.
Councillor, right, done, Councillor Galbraith. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. So I want to talk a bit about what's proposed in this business plan overall in terms of highways investment. This council has had a huge backlog left by previous administrations, and the record investment going in is meaning that we can get to a point that there is not managed decline anymore. That investment is key, and I'm really pleased to see that is in this business plan, that we are making the investments to improve our roads. I think we all know how many potholes are around. We've probably seen some of them on the way in today. But the fact that we are actually putting in enough investment that we're no longer in managed decline, I think is a really strong point of this business plan. And I think that's a key point that we need to feed through to SRP.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. I'm going to take an opportunity to say something myself here, which is that we do have the investment currently in the 26-27 business plan to continue that extra 20 million, which keeps us out of managed decline. I don't know whether members would support trying to ask SRMP to add that in again for 27-28, so as we can also continue that investment and make sure we're out of managed decline. I'm going to look at the leader there and perhaps other opposition members as well. But my hope would be that we might be able to recommend that, because I do think it is really important that we are investing enough to maintain our roads. But next up, I have Councillor Wyatt, who might be about to say something similar.
Thanks. I've only been a councillor for 6 months, but in that time I have learned way more about potholes than I've ever imagined I would. And part of that is my understanding of how getting them sooner saves quite a lot of money, because once they hit a threshold, you get much bigger problems that are harder to do. And part of that requires capital investment and resurfacing roads. So I would be very in support of asking to maintain that extra 20 million or whatever we can manage, because as I understand it, there are still quite a lot of roads that need resurfacing and quite a lot of things that need dealt with. And if we don't do it now, it'll be worse in years' time. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, it was with regard to this 2 million, I think you said, with regard that would fund. Over what period would we be looking to finance that, to repay it back? And then with regard to the combined authority, when are we likely to know precisely the figure we're actually going to get? Because it just seems to me is that we're a bit clutching at straws almost. We've had what we had in the past. We don't know quite when we're going to get it. So that's my concern, is the budget is relying on probables, not definites, which I don't like.
So I'll deal with the second part of your question, Councillor Gardner, and then Mike will pick up the financing term. So with the combined authorities, so the funding's been allocated by DfT, so we know what the total allocation is. We know what the indicative allocation would be for Cambridgeshire. The combined authority is required to produce what's called a local transport delivery plan for that funding, and it has to be submitted by the 20th of March. Therefore, will need to be considered by their board in the early part of March. So by that point, we'll know what the allocations will be. Of course, we're having conversations officers to officers to say how important it is actually, because attached to the funding is also outcomes that DfT are expecting. Of course, we'll be making the point it's important for us to have the clarification in order for us to plan and then spend the money to achieve the outcomes that the funding's meant for, because DfT also measure how well we actually spend the money, not just how it's allocated. So we think by March, therefore, we'll have the clarity that we're looking for. And obviously, we've got political representation on the combined authority board through the leader of the council, so we'll make those points abundantly clear. Okay, thank you. And then Mike will pick up the other point.
So yes, just to clarify, first of all, the borrowing costs include the minimum revenue provision to build up the money to repay the debt. We can't borrow beyond the estimated value of the asset. So in this instance, clearly the roads will be in a state of repair for a set period of time. So we've classed that as 10 years. The £2 million is a rough calculation, because clearly there'll be a point at which borrowing will be crystallised as and when we take the funding out. But it's over a 10-year period.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Gardner, just to add to your point about the CPCA, Yes. We saw, I believe I'm right in saying this year that they were slightly delayed in getting us the road maintenance funding, which was slightly problematic. DFT is now also combining together a lot of different funding streams together. So while we have our highway maintenance funding, we also have active travel funding and everything else. And I really hope there won't be shenanigans at the CPCA and that we will get all the money that we expected for all the areas that we're giving it for. But we will obviously be keeping a very close eye on that one to make sure that the money that we get is the money that DFT is giving us to do those things. Brilliant. Next up, though, Councillor Goldsack.
Tom, thank you very much, Chair. Two quite separate points, if I can. First and foremost, reading the document is the first time I've come across the changed directorate plan for next year. Can I have some, as in with S&P's disappearing and we're going to get an OCE? Can I get some understanding of where that's been shared and what the outcomes, and will there be any committee structure changes? That's my first point. The second point is I have to bring up, I have to applaud the administration for what they're trying to do in terms of adding budget to a problem area. And I think this year has seen improvements. But I really am aghast, and I've written to both Frank and David so they know about this. I really am aghast that one cold snap and we're back at square one. We've got temporary fixes that have become roadblocks. We've got road users dodging potholes and humps. Humps are the temporary fills to potholes to save tyres bursting. I just, as much as the budget is the budget, it'll probably be no surprise that I won't be voting for the budget because our group will be bringing an alternative budget. But looking at the budget, there's lots of good in here. I'm just wondering that, could we have some vote of faith with the head of this directorate leaving? Are we operationally in the best place that we could be, and have we covered all the bases to address this? We've got a cold snap coming next week. I'm not sure my email or social media accounts can take it, to be perfectly honest with you. Vice Chairman was talking about her expertise in potholes. Try 8 to 9 years worth of dealing with the complaints. So they're two very genuine questions about the state of play. If they're going to be covered in any later matter, I'm very happy to have deferral on those questions now, and we come back to them.
Do you want to answer some of those now?
Well, the first one relating to the change to the directorate structure, I don't think it's actually relevant for the business plan, but we can provide some further information and clarification. But it doesn't change the committee structure. It's changed the directorate structure, but the headline is because of the retirement of the Executive Director for Strategy and Partnerships. The directorates have been changed. So placing sustainability has additional responsibilities, including community development, resilience, and some of the corporate services report to the Chief Executive directly. But we can provide further information outside Councillor Goldsack on those changes.
If I can, Frank, and through you, Chair, I'm going to use a lovely word that's often overused here. My only concern in this is not how you do it, it's the ability for the scrutiny to follow any action. And that's the bit I'm not sure. So I want to make sure that going forward, our structure of our committees mirrors and gives the absolute optimal opportunity for scrutiny of the actions therein.
Yeah. So on that, Councillor Goldsack, so it's really clear in terms of the office structure, which part of the council reports to which committee for overall scrutiny. So that has been clarified. And Michael's just informed me that this was clarified at Strategy, Resources and Performance Committee as well in December. Okay. So on the second point, just before bringing David in. So I think in terms of the highways overall function and highways management and maintenance, we have seen improvement, but we're not at the end of the journey of improvement. There's still more work to do. So I think in terms of saying, have we actually completely nailed the management of highways? No, because it's an £800 million backlog. There's significant challenges, in terms of soil impacted roads, but we have seen improvements, but we've got some further improvements to make. We'll be bringing some of that further detail to March committee. And then the particular issue that you highlight, David's going to come in, but we have got an operational plan to deal with that, which David can outline very briefly now, but we'll provide that to all members so they're really clear in terms of what we're doing over the next few weeks because of the current weather conditions. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, just to follow on that operational plan for the winter weather, there's a range of measures in there at a headline level, additional crews out on the network, weekly coordinating meetings with the contractor, but also with Streetworks to get on the network more quickly, utilising more of the drag and patch where it's appropriate to do so, use of different materials again where it's appropriate to do so, and we'll continue to report on progress through what is always a challenging time, but we want to make sure we're absolutely on top of it.
Thank you very much. I'll just add in myself as well, David, that we are putting in a record investment and doing a record amount of resurfacing and surface treatments. That doesn't mean that we've resurfaced or surface treated every road, far from it. Those roads that we have not done at their end of their life, they are still going to suffer from potholes. And that is a problem that we will see until we can keep doing this investment and make sure that we can actually bring our roads up to the modern standards. Decades of decline cannot be reversed in a couple of years. This is going to take a while. You are right, though, that we are seeing an elevated level of potholes at the moment. Looking at the data, it's actually been now that we are actually collecting much better data, we can actually now see the pothole trends. And it is really interesting how after snow and ice, you suddenly see a huge spike in potholes. One of the things we've been discussing is actually going forwards, we need to make sure that we're planning for all this and bringing in the extra crews at the right time to be able to do it. As David's just said, we are massively increasing the number of crews we've got at the moment to get on top of it. But sadly, potholes are going to continue to be a problem until we can get a big enough investment over enough time to actually bring our roads up to a modern standard and address that huge backlog that we do have. I don't want to get too far into road quality now, though, in the budget papers. I'm sure we could all talk about this for probably about 3 hours and how we do things. Do I have anyone else on the budget, though? No. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so Frank, I think we come over to you to summarize. I think the only change I've heard about is continuing funding. Is there anything else you want to bring out and make sure that we report to SRP?
So just going to read something out to you in terms of a summary. So the committee undertook scrutiny of the budget lines relating to the committee and raised a number of points, including assumptions and confidence around savings and income such as lane rental in 27-28. Officers provide assurance on these matters, and clarity was also provided on the £20 million investment and funding of borrowing. I think the key point also, which I think you came back with, Chair, as well, is just highlighting the point for continued investment beyond 26-27 in terms of planned maintenance in the highway. And sorry, I've just had obviously just to emphasise the point that we need to be making a very clear case to the Combined Authority to get the allocation of the funding before the start of the financial year. Thank you.
Yes, and we as members on the Combined Authority need to make sure that we are scrutinising effectively and that that money is coming to us. Brilliant. Do any members have any concerns about that summary? No. In that case, then we are asked to consider and scrutinise the proposals relevant to this committee within the 26-29 business plan and budget put forward by the SRP committee on the 11th of December 2025. Recommended changes and or actions for consideration by the SRP committee at its meeting on the 29th of January 2026 to enable the business plan and budget to be proposed to full council on the 10th of February 2026. And C, receive the fees and charges schedule for this committee included Appendix 2. Is everyone content that we've done that? Can I take that?
Agreed.
No. You're not okay, fine. I always find this an interesting one because we're not being asked to support the budget here. We're being asked to have done. Okay, you would rather we took a vote on it. Okay, fine. Okay, in that case then, can I see those in favour of the recommendations? Those abstaining? Those against? Brilliant.
Thank you, Chair. That's 10 in favour of the recommendations, 3 against and 2 abstentions.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Now, committee, I am aware of time. We're coming from a break, but I'm hoping we can push through. The real thing that I want to make sure is we have our procurement strategy coming as the last item on the agenda. And I'd really like to make sure that we have at least an hour to discuss that one, just to give us time to properly scrutinise it. So the next paper we've got is the road safety paper. It was deferred from the last meeting, but it's now being introduced by Simon Bergen. So Simon, do you want to come forwards and introduce the paper?
Just a minor point of order of the structure of the meeting. So are you actually advocating that we're not going to stop for a comfort break? I just, for personal reasons, I would need to know the
No,
other
no,
end
no.
of that.
I'm hoping we can get to a comfort break. Normally, we need a comfort break in 10 minutes' time. So
That's
I'm hoping
fine,
we can
that's
get through this
right.
one, get to a comfort
But-
break about sort of 12:15-ish, and then
Right,
get
but
on to it.
secondly, then if that hour is going to be very tight for some of us in this room, have probably got CYP meeting starting at 2 o'clock.
Yes,
Let
we
alone
need to
other
be out of
people.
this room for the CYP meeting.
Oh, I'll just stay in here.
So maybe if we can, as long as we're not spending too long on this paper, I'm confident we can do it. But let's go.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chair and members of the Highways and Transport Committee. My name is Simon Bergen. I'm the Road Safety Manager. The report was previously circulated, so I'm going to run through the highlights as I'm mindful of time. The report details our road safety activity and current levels of reported injury collisions. Overall, the trend is downward, and the target as set by the Vision Zero board remains on a downward trend. This will, of course, need to be reviewed in light of the recent publication of the road safety strategy by the government, which has set some tougher targets, which we will need to review, not only obviously as a authority, but also, of course, with our partners. The overall common causational factors in our injury collisions remain pretty much unchanged in that they are ineffective observation either by the driver, rider or pedestrian. The driver, rider is being aggressive, dangerous or reckless. The driver or the rider is travelling too fast for the conditions, including loss of control, a distraction to the driver or rider from inside or outside of the vehicle, and the driver or rider exceeding the speed limit. That is across the majority of the injury collisions we record. Fatal collisions are slightly different, and they involve a disproportionate amount of criminality at nearly 40%, including drinking and drug driving, unlicensed or disqualified drivers, and serious criminality. Most harm occurs on our national speed limit network, so 60 miles an hour, where the vehicle users are exposed to higher speeds and thus greater risk. We are watching closely the outcome of the A47 50 mile an hour speed limit programme by National Highways between Peterborough and Wisbech, the A5 in Bedfordshire and the A12 in Essex. These schemes are all enforced with average speed camera sets. Initially, early data would appear to be demonstrating early success, and if the evidence suggests a real reduction in harm, then a detailed report will be presented to this committee for consideration of similar schemes on our A roads, including the A141, 142, A10, A1307, A1198 and the A505. The premise being remove the risk of harm, remove the speed. The Fatal Review Network, Cambridgeshire Vision Zero Partnership led the way nationally in the way that it reviews and investigates every fatal collision on our network. It ensures that rapid infrastructure interventions are delivered where appropriate, and it's delivered across the whole partnership, involving investigations with the police, ourselves, network managers, etc., from the maintenance teams. We are delighted as an authority to be supporting the wider National Fatal Review Board programme, which has been picked up and highlighted by the DFT as best practice, and we are supporting as far afield as Manchester and Birmingham and such places who are introducing their own fatal review boards. Core risk groups at the moment for us, and again mirrored similarly across the UK, young drivers remain at the highest risk of being involved in a fatal or serious injury, that age group being 17 to 24, predominantly male. Motorcyclists, they represent just 1% of our road population, yet are often 20 or 25% of those killed or seriously injured. Unfortunately, 2025, although the figures are yet to be verified, has seen a number of motorcycle fatalities across the county have doubled. Planned safety infrastructure investment. As part of the Council's capital programme, the following safety schemes have been identified and are being delivered, which is Wheatsheaf Crossroads at Bluntisham, Puddock Road is underway and continues, and the Home to School Routes programme is now in development and will be delivered. Education interventions, we continue to deliver Junior Travel Ambassador in 32 of our primary schools, and we continue to deliver the Youth Travel Ambassador in our secondary schools in 6 of those locations. It's fair to say there's some early indication from the DFT that where they have records of intervention at early age, it does lead to lifelong learning and a better outcome in terms of injury reduction where our youngsters are involved in road safety from a very early outset. Cluster site analysis, yearly cluster site analysis continues. This analysis now includes the IRAP data for the A roads, the Compass speed data, which we've only just purchased as part of a partnership agreement that came into force in November. We also review the maintenance and works in relation to collision causation factors as well, to bring together every bit of data that we can to look at what's happening and why, and what we can do to remove the risk of harm via infrastructure changes. That concludes my summary, Chair.
Thank you, Simon, and thank you for all the work you are doing on road safety. It is something that is so important for all of us. Members, do I have any questions or comments, though? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Simon, for a comprehensive report. My question is with regard to, do we have any statistics with regard to collision data where our roads meet national highways roads? Because I couldn't see anything in that report stating that fact.
No, we don't. Obviously, our roads, effectively everything we do on them is up to our boundary, up to our point. But where we have an overlap, or where we believe there may be causational links between what's happening on the strategic road network, national highways, and ourselves, certainly at a higher level with regards to our fatalities, yes, we do review them with them, but not on a lower injury scale, so serious or slights, no.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Councillor Edge.
Thank you for the paper. Although I support the paper as a whole, I do have a few questions. So road safety is really important, and obviously not an area that is solely the responsibility of highways. 2.7 refers to 5 key work streams. I only see 4 listed, though it would be really great to understand what the 5th work stream is. That's an aside from the points I want to question. In this section, it outlines who the lead on each work stream is, but it doesn't outline the level of or method of collaboration between them. I want to come at this from a preventative approach, in prevention, in my view, being better than cure. I'm also reflecting on my own observations and concerns shared by residents. So safe speeds and safe road users are the responsibility of the police. Safe roads and roadsides are the respective responsibility of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. What is deemed a safe speed is determined and dependent on optimum road conditions. It does not feel that there is sufficient consideration of proactive responses when the conditions of roads would no longer recommend the suggested speed, either because there's an immediate and isolated defect or issue, or moreover because the general condition would no longer suggest that the speed is sensible or recommended for safety purposes. Other than a few examples on soil-affected roads that I've seen in Fenland, I haven't seen any examples of safety recommendations on driving slower where the conditions of the road would clearly suggest it's a priority. Do we have a procedure to handle this? Do we feel that this procedure is effective? And if not, as my own experience would suggest, I would like to see how we are planning to improve this. It only takes one hidden pothole to kill a cyclist or a motorbike rider, or one patchwork road where a driver is driving faster than they should but within the recommended limit to send them off the road. It would also be interesting to understand how close how close such occurrences are becoming in relation to the fatal 5 outlined in 3.4 or hidden within the factors set out in 3.5. The condition of the road, in my view, isn't factored into any of the data presented in the report, which I find hard to believe is never a factor.
Thank you very much for the question. The fatal review board that we carry out is a live scene visit. So whenever there is a fatality, that is a live scene visit where the road is driven. So it's driven at the speed limit. And as an example, the B1101, where we had a motorcycle fatality 2 years ago, we've instigated a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit on that road. The soil affected road programme is a programme we're working through and looking at those in terms of what is a safe speed for that road, and it is likely we may well follow suit. The A605 being an example where we currently have reductions of speed there, and they're likely to be permanent as we move forward. So the road safety factors, unfortunately, we do focus more on our fatalities than others because there's a limit to how much we can cover because the network is so big and so large. But as part of the road maintenance programme, certainly that's something that the highways maintenance officers bear in mind and can bring forward. So it's something that we do look at and do monitor. But from a road safety factor, road defects rarely feature as a factor in collisions, and that's something that we find not only through the data and by having the fatal review program, it's often identified to us very, very quickly where we have concerns with the road. We've got some issues at the moment with the A1307, a brand new designed road that meets a very high standard and all of the latest standards. Unfortunately, we have had 3 fatalities on one particular area, one particular stretch. We've now identified what that problem is, and working with National Highways, we are resolving that problem, and investment is going in there to sort that out. But it's only through repeated returns to look, review, and understand how the collisions are occurring that we've now got to the point we are. So all of the roads are reviewed in terms of, are they safe? Does the speed match the environment?
Can I just quickly
Sure.
come back on that quickly?
Quick though, Councillor.
Yeah, so it's really quick. Thank you for that. I totally understand it where there's kind of data of something building up. I guess where I'm coming from is being proactive about prevention where something's kind of materializing in a localized area quite imminently.
Yeah, we pick that up through our cluster analysis. So where we get cluster site data, so where we've got 3 or more serious injury or fatalities or 6 or more of any injury scale, then we review those as a matter of course. And one of those, of course, is not just the infrastructure, but the road surface and the whole piece. And where we have got cluster sites that are close to one another, we don't just say, well, there's a cluster site here, and then 500 meters up the road, there's another one there. We would bring those together and look at them, as a whole.
Brilliant. Councillor, did you want to follow up with one last question? I am very aware of time.
I just didn't feel that really answered where I was coming from. I get it in terms of where we've got the data and when we're looking at it reflectively, but what I'm trying to talk about is prevention of kind of anything.
Thank you. Maybe we can take some of this offline as well. I think road safety does require a really full discussion. Next on my list, though, I've got Councillor Boulat.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this report and also the wider government road safety strategy announced recently. And it's good to see some of the reduction in injuries in the last year, although, of course, 22 is still a much bigger number than the 0 that we're aiming for. I have 2 questions. One is on 316, which speaks about the trial of respect signage in Cambridge City and how the council intends to roll this out across other Cambridgeshire active travel routes. So I was wondering, what's the time frame for that, and which areas do we expect this to be implemented first, if there's any prioritization of those areas, because I think it will really help, especially in terms of cycling in the area. And then the second question, which I raised as well with the CPCA, I did notice in their new corporate plan, the CPCA dropped the metric on actually recording killed or seriously injured casualties because they claim the CPCA doesn't have direct influence over this. But in my view, of course, the CPCA does have responsibility and designs and facilitates travel schemes and infrastructure projects. So to me, that is important. So the question is, does this change the relationship that CCC has with the CPCA on this? Are we still part of the same partnership? Does it have any impact at all? Yeah, basically, does it have any impact? Because I was quite concerned seeing that. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take the last question first. The CPCA do sit on the Vision Zero board, so they have a direct link into that, and we work closely with them. With regards to the respect signage, it's something that we've started to roll out across the busway, and that's why we're going to continue with it. We haven't got a priority of where we're going to put them, but certainly on our shared use network, we're getting some. The problem we have with this, the data around cycle pedestrian collisions on our shared use network off of the road network is very limited, because often the police don't record them because they don't go to them. What we are beginning to pick up is through the work of the trauma network, so through Addenbrooke's A&E and Cambridgeshire University Hospital. So we're trying to work with them to get some data from them. It's a hard task because they're busy people, but I welcome the inclusion of it within the road safety strategy, actually, which says that this information is key to us to understanding more, because it's the one bit of data we don't currently have that we really do need, because it would give us a complete data set, in my view, where we don't get records through the normal Stats 19 process.
Thank you very much. And just to add to your point of the CPCA there, Alex, as well, given that they're now going to have far more control over budgeting, including some of the budget that controls road safety, that is something that we probably need to be very aware of. Next on my list, I have Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for your report, Simon. I want to draw our attention to the background at 2.1, page 88 of the agenda. And I welcome the measures that are proposed in the bullets, but I think we should go further than this, because I want to be sure that we are learning from previous accidents and accident data. You'll understand, I'm referring to the A10, which is in my division of Waterbeach. There have been numerous accidents on the section between Chittering, Waterbeach and Milton. Now, remembering the tragic accident at Cardyke Road in January 2022, when there was a fatality and severe injury, I asked for a reduction from the national speed limit and a speed camera to reinforce it. Correction, it was actually 50 miles an hour at that time. But I asked for a camera to reinforce any reduction from that. I was told at that time, we'll introduce the reduction, which has been introduced to 40 miles per hour, but there's been no speed camera. And I was told we'll see how that reduction is observed. Now, meantime, we've had a double fatality at Chittering and other accidents, fortunately one not causing injury, but in Milton. And we've had a number of near misses at the Humphreys Way junction, which is the Landbeach Road, Humphreys Way crossroads. And I would just like to understand, why is there such a reluctance to introduce a speed camera on that road to reinforce the 40 mile per hour limit?
Okay. Following the events of the fatality on Cardyke Road, I was actually there that evening. The investigation and subsequent work carried out by the police. They did carry out some activity on the road using the safety camera van and also mobile unmarked resources over a period of time, just to understand exactly what was happening there. The safety camera van, I'm pleased to report, had very little trade, is the best way to describe it. It wasn't active. It didn't detect issues with speed. Our own Compass data that we now have available doesn't show an issue of excessive speed there in compared to the limit. It's compliant. We have good compliance with the 40 limit. So in terms of would a camera be suitable, my view and that of the police would be no, because we have a compliance there anyway, so it's not gonna help any further. And cameras do have a limited ability to reduce speed over very short distances. We have some static cameras around the county where people slow down for the camera. Once they're through the camera, they speed up. What we're looking at with the A10 in particular, as part of the study that the National Highways are doing, is it would more be suited to an average speed set. So the A10 is included in that work. So we will look at that in the whole scheme with regards to what we do and where that best sits. But at the moment, having the data that we do at the moment, it shows that we do have compliance with the 40. Apart from the very early hours of the morning when traffic is lighter, where yes, we do get people speeding, but it's the majority of collisions that occur there, unfortunately, do occur during busy times where the speed is lower.
Yes, go on, Councillor Bradham, you can continue.
Thank you. And with regard to the section north of Denny End Road, which is where the Chittering accident took place, that was somebody overtaking in a dangerous situation, as I understand it, which caused a double fatality. So that section is still at 50 miles per hour, and I can't remember if it actually goes up to 60 there, but
Councillor Bradnam, I'm just really aware of time, and I don't want us to get too location specific.
Are we looking at the whole A10 is what I'm concerned about.
Do you want to answer the whole item? And then...
Yes, we will be, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you about the most recent fatality.
Brilliant. I think an offline conversation about that would be really useful. Councillor Sidlow.
Thank you, Chair. I'm new to this committee, and I've looked through. I think I've glanced through one of these before. How do you collect the data on injuries specifically, and is there any data collection when it comes to collisions that don't involve an injury? Is there any way of getting that data? Because there was a point made earlier about the condition of the roads, I think by Councillor Edge, and whether that relate, and you said there's no correlation. But I would be interested to know if there's a correlation between accidents that, any accident, whether it's a reported injury or not, and the condition of the roads. Thank you.
Okay, so our injury data comes from the police stats 19 data. So whenever they have recorded an injury collision, when we have a fatal review visit, so when we have a fatal collision occur and the site visit happens, the police also bring reports with them, not just injury collision reports, but those where they've had near miss reports, etc. So we do get some of that data, but it is only for fatalities. The problem you have with damage-only collisions is that there's not always a complete data set, and we don't have a full. The police don't always understand what the causation factors were, because many people don't often report into damage collisions. In fact, we know that our slight injury collisions are not fully reported because people don't always want to report an injury collision for various different reasons. They may not or should not be on the road. They could be drink or drug driving. So again, it's not a full, complete picture, unfortunately. But where we can get the data, we do, which is why we're keen to get the trauma network data and get the NHS data in.
Just to add to that myself as well, I think that is a really important point. I spent a very long evening, far longer than I should have done, in the 999 Centre in Huntingdon recently. And it was interesting to see how many reports of road traffic collisions and road traffic things they get. And also, while I was there listening in, there were, I think, at least one, possibly several, cases where the police didn't even go out to a collision where it was clear that somebody had deliberately, caused an accident because there was no injury. They didn't attend. So that is a real issue that we have in getting that data. Simon, though, you mentioned earlier about the Compass data and some of that. There is now increasingly more data coming from people's mobile phones that looks at things like harsh braking incidents and other indicators of not collision but near miss. And I think that, combined with our IRAP data, is some of what we can do. And also, as you mentioned, that trauma network work is really important because, yeah, I do really recognise the fact that the injury data isn't complete. Brilliant. Did you want to come back very quickly? Okay, thank you. Next up, I've got Councillor Fane.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Bergin, for that report. One thing that frankly astonished me was that when we look at the road safety factors, I think at figure 4, and this was confirmed by what you said in response to a question by Councillor Edge, the condition of road, i.e. road defects, are rarely a factor. Now, as councillors, I suspect we react more to reports of near collisions, which are always subjective, than to reports of actual collisions. But I would be astonished by any suggestion that when we see drivers weaving about the road to avoid potholes, weaving into the cycle lanes in some cases, and cyclists swerving out of the cycle lanes in some cases to avoid potholes, that has not actually led to any serious injuries. That may be the case, and I'm very reassured if it is the case, but I am concerned that it is not shown as a category, because sometimes, let's be honest, when you're assessing something, you look at the categories before you and decide which category to put an injury, possibly a serious injury, into. Is it possible that by failing to list road safety, road condition as one of the factors in figure 4 in a road safety factor, that we are actually underestimating the impact of road condition on road safety impacts?
Thank you for the question. The report has the main categories, the main causational factors in. the police stats 19 form does indeed include a section where the police can tick the box to say this is down to a road defect. We have that data. We can look at that. If you'd like me to provide that, then please do contact me and we can provide it. It's not one of the main causational factors, which is what the report has highlighted. It's the main factors that we look at.
Thank you very much. Simon, do you want to turn your microphone off, by the way? That's really important. I think the other thing that we often miss personally as well is our duty obligation is about vehicles and collisions involving vehicles, but actually a lot of people are injured on our road network that doesn't necessarily involve a vehicle of any description. There's slip, strips, falls is a really common one, which is a road condition data. Now that is obviously also people being hurt on our network, and currently I don't believe we really have any data collected on that. I think that's another thing that we need to be doing. I've recently visited in my own area a home for vulnerable people, and they were talking about the incidences of people slip, tripping and falling and what actual impact that has, almost as much as being in a road traffic accident. If you break your arm slipping over, that's almost as serious as breaking your arm in a car accident. It is all injuries that it's causing to people. So I would really like to see if we can gather some data on that, in particular see if there are any kind of almost hot spots of that happening as well around particularly vulnerable users. I think it's worth us bringing this to a close now, though. I am very aware of time, so thank you everybody for that. I think that was really useful. I think. Oh, sorry, did you have your hand up? Oh, go on then. Go on, Councillor Manning.
I'll be quick. Just picking up from Councillor Bulat's point about that signage thing, that trial. Do you know if it actually worked? Did they have any data collected on it? Because it feels a little bit like those signs that say no ball games that can have the opposite effect. But the main thing I was to ask about, following on from all the other comments, have we done any work on overlaying the accident data that you're looking at with data from Aurora and data from One Dot Network? Because I can easily see that you could have a cluster of utilities works that results in degradation of a road, and then there's some accidents around that, and that we could find that out by just overlaying all that data together.
We would do as part of our cluster site analysis. Yes, we bring it all together.
Can we see that anywhere then? It's not in the report, is it?
Not recently, because Aurora's only recently gone live, so we're getting a better data set. So as and when that data set grows, we'll be able to.
But
we'll be able
One
to look
Dot
at that.
Network as well, though, because that's been around for ages, hasn't it? So...
Yeah. We haven't done it as yet.
Right.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Manning, Councillor White assures me that you weren't on the list, so you're obviously sneaking in there at the last. Right, members, so we are being asked to review and scrutinise the performance of the council with regard to its duties in relation to road safety, agree a road safety strategy for the council should be produced to take account of the revised national road safety strategy, and delegate authority to the Executive Director of Place and Sustainability in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair of the Housing and Transport Committee to approve the council's response to the government consultation on the new road safety strategy. Can I take that one by affirmation? Looking over there. Yep, I think so.
Great.
Brilliant. Okay, we were meant to be doing the performance report next. Now, given time, I really do want to make sure that we have time in the meeting for the exempt item. So I'm going to suggest that we defer for now the performance report in order to give us time to really properly scrutinise the report after that. If anybody does have any questions, speaking to Frank, he's very happy to take any questions on the performance report offline if anybody wants to do that. So we'll defer that one. And then I think, Nick, am I right in saying we can then move on to item 10, which is the procurement of the term service contract? Yes, I was going to see if we could get permission to move into private session and then take the break there, that then will give you a chance to turn off. Okay, so item 9. Okay, so that is, yeah, okay, I think I'm right there. So the final item on the agenda is exempt from publication. So the committee will need to decide whether to exclude the public and press from the remainder of the meeting while it is discussed. The exclusion would be on the grounds that the report contains exempt information under paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended, and that it would not be in the public interest for this information to be disclosed. That is, information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. We need to put that to a vote. I should say in advance, I would obviously rather this wasn't done in private session. I think we should make as much public as possible. But given what information is in here, I really do believe it is in the public interest that we do this in exempt session. What I've asked Frank and Democratic Services is whether after we come back from this in the future, There will be a point in time where I don't believe this needs to be confidential. And I think at that point, we should seek to publish as much information from this as we can at the point where it is not confidential and not in the interest of the council. So I'm just going to add that in there as part of it. But does any member have any objection to us moving into confidential session? No. In that case, then we'll move into confidential session now. What I will also suggest is that we take a 10-minute break and that we come back at 12:30 to start the last item. Thank you.